This is part 7 in the disappearance of Belinda Van Lith.
She was very outgoing. She was very beautiful always. She's a very popular girl, very athletic, and she loved gardening. She had it made at home. She had nothing to run away from.
If they were doing stuff like that, more people should have known, because
the family should have known first.
I firmly believe that the more people that know information, somebody saw something somewhere, and whether it was a critical piece of information, it might have led to a critical piece of information.
I'd do stupid things when I was younger, yeah. Did I understand why I was doing them? No.
Did you kill Belinda? Did you kidnap her or have anything to do with her going missing? The release of Belinda's investigative file brought the details of her case to light for the first time. The contents of that file have been thoroughly examined throughout the course of this series, from Belinda's case being initially devastatingly mischaracterized as a runaway scenario to the civil commitment of the man considered to be the main suspect in her disappearance. Belinda's file exposed Timothy Crosby's criminal history and provided a powerful case as to why the Wright County Sheriff's Office believes he had the means, motive, and opportunity to abduct Belinda on June 15th, 1974. A day after she knocked on his cabin door, looking for his sister, Susan, and, by his own admission, in an interview for this series, gave Belinda a reason to come back the next day, when he said Susan would be around, except she wasn't around that weekend. We know from Timothy Crosby's history that he was a planner. Each of his victims attested to his preparation. They alleged that he thought out each attack and packed his bag accordingly. But we cannot say that Timothy Crosby took Belinda because there is not 100% certainty. Concrete evidence has not been uncovered. Charges have not been filed, and therefore, he has not been convicted. With that in mind, we have asked people to come forward with any information related to any suspect or related to any aspect of this story. And people have. Here are a few things that took place behind the scenes of this series. Belinda's friend Debbie was the last person to speak with Belinda on the phone the morning of June 15th, 1974. You heard from her earlier in this series. I connected with Debbie through the Vault's Facebook group, which led to a lengthy discussion over the phone. Debbie told me that she spoke with Belinda about a pair of earrings. That's documented in the investigative file, too. But Debbie provided some more information about the context of that conversation. Belinda had ordered Debbie earrings through a magazine. They were roach clip earrings. It was 1974, after all. During that phone conversation, Belinda told Debbie that she was going to drop the earrings off at Debbie's house that day. And here's the part of Debbie's story that really piqued my interest. Debbie lived close to Belinda and the Cornwell residence. Debbie had no idea at the time that Belinda was at the Cornwell residence when she called. She assumed she was at home. Belinda called Debbie. There was and is a large field behind the Cornwell residence. Imagine the field as a big, giant square. Each of the homes, the Cornwell home, Debbie's home, and Belinda's home, sat on the borders of that big square field. The neighborhood kids used that field as a means of travel, a shortcut. They'd take the field's paths to and from one another's houses. And Debbie wonders now, and has wondered for decades, if Belinda took that series of trails that day, on the day she disappeared, from Cornwell's house to her house to deliver those roach clip earrings. As far as the investigative file shows, those roach clip earrings were not discovered at the Cornwell residence, and if they were, that wasn't documented in the case file. We've looked into at least one individual who multiple people throughout the course of this series have brought up as maybe another suspect, someone who lived near Belinda and near that field. I will not be using that person's name because they have not been formally investigated or charged with a crime, but I will say we looked into this person's criminal record and there is none. We reached out to this individual but have not heard a response. And I'll state again that there was no circumstantial evidence linking this person to Belinda's disappearance. This individual was someone the neighborhood kids thought was odd. This individual's name did not come up in the investigative file. There was another avenue of exploration that came up during this series. In the midst of the 1,000 plus pages of the file was one page that included a handwritten note. Not one addressed to another person, but the kind of note you take when jotting down information you want to get down on paper. The note referenced a piece of land Timothy Crosby's aunt owned on Cedar Lake in Wright County. There wasn't an address, but the land was described as a peninsula. We looked up a map of that lake and, sure enough, there is a peninsula. There was no indication in the investigative file that the peninsula has been searched. I did ask Lieutenant Mike Lindquist about that body of land, the peninsula, but I have not heard back from him yet. Here's another conversation that happened behind the scenes of this series. To gain more insight into the relationship between Timothy Crosby and his father, I spoke to at least one individual with a keen understanding of the father-son dynamic. That person wishes to remain anonymous, but told me this. Timothy Crosby, along with his two other siblings, were adopted. Glenn and Annette Crosby wanted to give these children a better life. They took their adoption as a solemn oath to protect and care for all three of them. And because of that commitment, Glenn did do everything to protect and take care of his son. According to this source, Glenn's protection came from a place of love. Despite it all, Timothy Crosby never seemed to learn or change, and his victims suffered in ways we'll never fully understand. And as far as new information in this case, throughout the course of this series, we did hand over 2 photos to Lieutenant Mike Lindquist. You'll recall that Diane provided a photo of Belinda wearing her signature troll necklace, which investigators believed she was wearing when she went missing. That necklace has been named in search warrant applications related to Belinda's disappearance over the years, but the investigative file didn't include any photos or a description of the necklace. A troll necklace could mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. Diane's photo was blurry, but it did give us at least some idea of what that necklace looked like. It was brown. It appeared to have been made of wood or pewter. And based on that photo, there was either a hole in the middle or a white stone. Belinda was wearing a white t-shirt in that photo, so it was hard to tell. Here's why that stood out to me. During the 2009 search at Timothy Crosby's St. Paul home, investigators took into evidence a small white stone. The evidence bag labeled the item as a, quote, small white stone jewelry piece. Diane and I talked about the necklace, and she couldn't recall if it was a hole or a white stone, so she went on a mission and searched through her old photos until she found another image of Belinda wearing that necklace. Only this time, Belinda was wearing a red shirt, which clearly showed that the necklace did not have a hole. It had a white stone. Investigators photographed the white stone found at Timothy Crosby's home, alongside other items, including what appeared to be a hemp bracelet with even smaller beads. The two items, side by side, put the size of the white stone into perspective. I am not a jewelry expert, but the size of the white stone in Belinda's necklace and the white stone found at Timothy Crosby's home seemed to be close in size, close enough to run it by Lindquist. So I emailed him and asked if it was something he would be interested in. After all, it could be nothing. He requested that I send those images over, and I did. He has not responded to my follow-up questions, and I don't know if he has or is planning to ask Timothy Crosby about the matter. Diane provided the photos of the necklace after I interviewed Timothy Crosby. I did put in another request for an interview to ask him about this and some other questions, but he denied that request. So much of this series has included the name Timothy Crosby. I'm going to put that name to rest now and focus on Belinda. Belinda K. Van Lith was born on May 20th, 1957, to Clifford and Beverly Van Lith. She had 4 sisters, Pam, Stephanie, Cindy, and Wendy, and 3 brothers, Dean, Scott, and Alan. Alan passed away in 2008. Belinda grew up 7 miles outside of Monticello, Minnesota, with acres of freedom just outside the door of the family's large white farmhouse, and just down the road from Eagle Lake. She was a key member of a close-knit family, so for this part of the series, I'll let them do the talking to tell you about their sister, Belinda. I spoke to her sister Stephanie on the phone. She was just 14 months younger than Belinda, and just 1 month shy of her sweet 16 when her sister suddenly went missing.
We did a lot of stuff together. We had kind of the same friends and, hung out together. I guess we probably did a little, gardening together and visiting, because I know that she was driving and I wasn't driving. So if I needed to go someplace, or had to run an errand for our mom and dad, that she was driving and I would go with her. If she couldn't babysit, I would babysit, or the opposite way around. She was very kind, outgoing, happy, never seemed like she was down about anything, or she was a good student. She got A's, and she had a lot of friends that, like I said, that we shared too. And she was involved with family and grandparents, and we had some relatives that were quite elderly that she would visit too, and we would go together to see them. We had a great grandma, and we had great aunts and uncles too that we saw them a lot too. I think we maybe would have raised our children together. I think she probably would have gone on and had maybe a horticulture degree and went to school, like that type of school, like that were her interests too. And sometimes I kind of think that's where Cindy picked it up, was from her. It was hard because people would bring it up all the time, and and then you didn't know what to say to them, and there was just, I think our family dynamics probably changed a little bit too, because our parents were just lost
and as far as how she felt when they received the investigative file.
Well, it's kind of a lot of anger. Like, are you kidding me? Like, why weren't we told about any of this? And, why didn't we know more about, like, what they were doing with the cadaver dogs and the digs at the house and, the lake stuff and all the stuff with Timothy and Crosby. And, yeah, it's kind of like, shouldn't we have been in the loop and not just, we were blindsided, I think, all of us. We didn't know any of this stuff. And
the following recordings come from Cindy and Wendy, who sat down alone to answer some questions about Belinda and share their thoughts. Wendy was just 9 years old when her big sister vanished.
Mostly I have impressions and feelings. I have a lot of her personal items that kind of evoke feelings of warmth and good memories. And, I remember being with her when I was a lot younger, kind of being, like her shadow. What do I think she would have been like today? Truly, I think she would have been a force of nature. She may have been an activist or an artist. She was outspoken, outgoing. She had so many friends. I have the watercolor bunnies that she painted, and they're beautiful. I have some of the papers she wrote in high school, and her teachers always gave her great feedback on her point of view and how open she was to suggestions and ideas. I really think she had the potential to be somebody important, truly. The connection she made as a young teenager and for the time in the 70s would have really served her well. She was such a free spirit and had such a presence that I think she just would have been a great person.
And as far as what she thinks life would have or could have looked like if her sister was still around, Wendy said this.
My wish would be, because of her capacity for giving and her zest for life, I would think that we would be close as I am to her as I am to Cindy. They share so much of the same energy, interests, that I would want my relationship with her to be like that, and with everybody else in my family. Truthfully, I think if she was still here, that my parents would probably still be alive. Maybe even my brother Alan. I think given the chance, we would have all thrived in different ways. Maybe follow the dreams that we had as kids. I think we would have, grown up and left my parents' nest happier and healthier. And that we'd all be close. As it is right now, we're all protective, very protective of our emotions. It affected our whole family ecosystem. Instead of tragedy bringing us together, it ripped us apart. When I think about that, I kind of envision or feel waves of emotion, more like dominoes falling over or buildings falling over, and it's kind of hard to explain. It's not hopeful. My parents, they weren't equipped to deal with this in any way. I remember days of my mother not getting out of bed. We didn't go to church anymore. Our faith was shattered. In society back then, there were no support groups or foundations to assist families with this kind of tragedy. We didn't have a voice, and we didn't know how to speak out. We never spoke about this together as a family since last year, since being approached to do the podcast. that's what's brought us closer together. I'm grateful for that. I'm so grateful for that. It's a new beginning for us. And now it's up to us to decide where we want to go as a family.
Cindy was 14 years old when she last spoke to her sister, without knowing it would be the last time.
What I miss a lot about my sister Belinda is she was always very, very helpful. She would talk to you. She'd ask you how you were doing. She shared a lot. I learned a lot from her about gardening. I have a really good memory of her. She was hired by our neighbors, the Goods, one summer to paint their fence. It was a wooden fence and it ran along the property. She managed to talk me into helping her. It was a lot of fun. Another really good memory of my sister Belinda. One spring, we decided to join the track team. We both gravitated more towards the field portion, not the running. So it was the shot put, discus, long jump, high jump. After track practice, our dad would pick us up to bring us home. He would always ask why, if we were on the track team, did we need a ride home? We always said, well, Dad, we live 8 miles from town. But occasionally, we would just skip the running portion of track practice and walk and jog home. We always had a lot to talk about. I miss that. She was really good with older people. She helped our Aunt Mary and Uncle Otto out at their farm a lot. She'd spend summers with them, helping them garden, and also at the Goods. With Simon, he was their elderly uncle. She made sure that he had what he needed and would just go down and talk with him and visit with him. We did a lot of stuff with 4-H. We played softball. We gardened. We were in the Share the Fun program. I also remember just her smile. She was sweet. I do have a lot of regrets and guilt. I feel as a family, we failed our sister. As a sister, I failed my sister. But the people who failed her most are the ones that should have fought the hardest for her. When we got the files from Bragg County, it was very disheartening in some aspects to see that, and very enlightening in other aspects. Truly, our family had no idea of the scope of the investigation. It was hard to look at. To my sister Belinda, I'm sorry. And we always love you.
Belinda's family held a memorial service for her on May 20th, 1988, at St. Henry's Catholic Church. They put up photos of Belinda and displayed poems she wrote. They sang hymns and mourned, together, the loss of the girl who once brought so much joy and laughter to their lives. At that big white farmhouse outside of Monticello, just down the road from Eagle Lake. Belinda's story, as of now, still ends in a question mark. But it is clear there is no question about who Belinda was and the lasting impact she's made on those she loved. Belinda's memorial service program included a poem by Christina Georgina Rossetti titled Remember, chosen by her family members and read now by Belinda's niece, Carrie Ann.
Remember me when I am gone away, gone far away in the silent land, when you can no more hold me by the hand. Now I have turned to go, yet turning to stay. Remember me when no more, day by day, you tell me of our future that you planned. Only remember me you understand. It will be late counsel then or pray. Yet if you should forget me for a while, and afterwards remember, do not grieve. For if the darkness and corruption leave a vestige of the thoughts that once I had, better by far you should forget and smile, than that you should remember and be sad.
Thank you for listening. You've been listening to The Disappearance of Belinda Van Lith. A special thank you to Belinda's siblings who helped make this series possible. This is the end of this ongoing series for now. If any information comes to light, you will find the details right here. To see all of the work related to Belinda's story, including images from the case file and photos of Belinda, visit inforum.com/Belinda. The Vault is a Forum Communications podcast. You can support our work by visiting inforum.com/subscribe. You can also support us by leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. This series has been written, narrated, and produced by me, Trisha Turinskis. The Vault's editor is Jeremy Fugelberg. I'll provide the links mentioned in the show notes. And again, thank you so much for listening.